It's night 5 of our 12 Weird Nights mini series, our little tradition of wandering through the stranger corners of the world as the year winds down. Each night, we sit together in the dark and let the world reveal something curious, something ancient, something that reminds us that wonder is never far from where we stand. Tonight, we're following a shape that appears in meadows, deserts, grasslands, and stories passed quietly through generations. A shape that seems too perfect to be random, yet too universal to belong to a single legend. A circle. Some circles bloom with mushrooms after the rain. Some circles appear as bare patches in the middle of vast deserts. Some circles whispers of dancers and portals and warnings older than memory. Welcome to Lil Weird. This is the invisible language of fairy circles. If you've heard of fairy circles before, you might imagine a ring of mushroom in a forest clearing. That's one kind, the European kind, where underground fungi grow outward in perfect arcs, leaving dark green grass or pale dying patches inside the circle. But halfway across the world, in the deserts of Namibia and Australia, fairy circles look completely different. No mushrooms, no lush ring, instead, large, perfectly round bald patches of earth surrounded by taller grasses, repeated over the landscape like a honeycomb thrown by something unseen. Scientifically, these two fairy circles are not the same phenomenon at all. But to the human eye, both feel intentional, both feel like messages. For centuries, people created stories to explain these circles. In the British Isles and Scandinavia, fairy rings were said to be the dancing grounds of the Fae. Enter one, they warned, and you could lose hours, days, or years. Some tales said you'd be forced to dance until your strength gave out. Others said you'd vanish entirely into the other world. People carried iron charms, wore hats backward, and more often than not, simply walked around the ring. The story shifted with each culture. In Germany, witches' rings formed during moonlit dances. In France, circles guarded by enchanted toads. In Austria, arcs scorched by dragon tails. In the Netherlands, a circle spilling outward from churn milk dropped by the devil himself. A single shape retold through 100 years. Here in the Philippines, we don't have mushroom rings or desert circles, but we know the feeling of an enchanted boundary. The punso, the mysterious clearing, the patch of ground we instinctively avoid. Different shape, different name, but the same quiet intuition. Respect the circle you find in the wild. Science didn't erase the magic, it simply revealed a deeper kind. The first is the mushroom rings of Europe. These rings form when fungal mycelium expands in all directions at once, reshaping the soil as it grows. The center becomes nutrient poor, the outer ring becomes rich. Mushrooms sprout along the active edge like small lanterns, revealing the mycelial frontier beneath the grass. What's beautiful is this. Some old European warnings, like keeping cows away from fairy rings, turned out to have ecological truth. The plants that grow beside some rings can make milk taste bitter. Folklore unknowingly was recording field tested observation. The second one is the desert circles of Namibia and Australia. These are far more mysterious. Two major theories try to explain them. First is the termite theory. Some circles contain underground networks of sand termites. Their feeding patterns may keep the center bare. Territory competition might explain the even spacing across the desert. And the second one is the self-organization theory. In extremely dry environments, plants compete fiercely for water. Mathematical models show that regular patterns of bare patches can emerge naturally, a survival strategy written into the land itself. What scientists are discovering is that neither explanation alone fits every circle. In some regions, termites play a major role. In others, vegetation patterns predict the circles more accurately. In many cases, both processes may work together. Mystery doesn't resist science, it evolves with it. And lastly is indigenous knowledge. The Himba people of Namibia see the circles as footprints of ancestral deity and also use the taller grasses around them for grazing. In Australia, Aboriginal elders long thought that the bare desert pavements mark termite activity, a knowledge later confirmed by scientific excavation. Sometimes, the world gives its answers early. We just listen late. So why circles? Why not squares, spirals, or zigzags? Circles are efficient. Circles distribute resources evenly. Circles from when something, fungi, roots, insects, or water, spreads outward with balance and intention. But humans, long before we understood biology or hydrology, recognized the same thing. A circle is a boundary, a warning, a symbol, a story. Maybe that's why so many cultures, without speaking to each other, imagine beings dancing in these shapes. Maybe they weren't wrong. Maybe they just interpreted the Earth's kite logic as the language of something supernatural. Because really, what is nature if not vast intelligence we're still learning to read? Whenever I see a perfect circle in nature, I feel kind of hush. As if I'm standing inside someone else's thought, something older than the land itself, repeated from meadow to desert to storybook to science paper. Maybe fairy circles are not just ecological quirks. Maybe they're reminders that life organizes itself even in harsh conditions, that boundaries exist for reasons we may not perceive, that patterns echo across worlds, from mushroom to sand dunes to our own small rituals. And maybe the real magic is this. Even without knowing why, humans have always recognized that circles in nature matter. We feel it, we tell stories about it, we walk around them with a strange, ancient caution. Some shapes are not just lines, they are lessons. Thank you for wandering into the circle with me tonight. If this story stirred something curious in you, follow Lilward across IG, Coffee, or wherever you like listening. And if you've ever encountered a strange ring, a marked clearing, or a shape in nature that made you pause, I'd love to hear it. Until then, stay curious and stay enchanted.